and welcome to the J-Train Podcast. This is J-Train, Jared Freid, coming to you live from the quarantine cabin on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. We are here Mondays and Thursdays. That's right, twice a week with your episodes of the J-Train Podcast, with your emails, your stories, your questions. I say it every episode. I'll say it again. Thank you for listening. Thank you for telling a friend. That's how this whole thing works. Listen, the world is ever changing. We don't know what's going on out there. Every day, something new. That's where this podcast comes in. Consistency. Your boy Papa JT, the Wizard of Ha, the Sultan of Swipes, the Prince of Promos, the Board Lord himself. I come in here to give you an hour of your day to take your brain, put it on the shelf, and just hang with my guest and I. And listen, all you got to do is tell a friend. There's ways to compensate me for my time and my efforts. Tell a friend, a coworker, a brother, a sister, a mama, a papa. You can join the Patreon. We've been doing it for years, but I really have a handle on what we're doing. Monday, you got J-Train. Tuesday, I'll give you a day off. Wednesday, I'm doing Luxury Lounge on the Patreon. Luxury Lounge, it's a short podcast. I'd say I go between 7 and 15 minutes. Last week was a longer one, and it's just me complaining about luxury issues. What's a luxury issue? It's shit that you shouldn't be complaining about because there's bigger problems in the world. That's the whole premise of the podcast. Then Friday, I'm doing a new podcast called One More Email, where I do one email that didn't make this show. Then Sunday, Coffee with J-Train. It's just me kind of just complaining and talking and telling stories from the week. It's very loose. It's Coffee with J-Train is one of my favorite things to do every week, other than meet with my guests and do this show. But so patreon.com/Jared Freid. You can find it in all the descriptions. It's $5 a month, 3 extra podcasts a week. That's a pretty good deal in my estimation, especially if you can find value in that. Also, I give advice to people if they want to sign up for other levels. It's all there. Lastly, I got shows coming up. We're laughter lives, people. We are trying to survive as stand-up comedians. I am doing every street corner and farm and outdoor carnival in this country, and that is not changing. I am doing a show with Nimesh Patel. He's been a guest on this show. Hilarious. Nimesh and I are doing 2 shows in Charleston, South Carolina. My friend is an owner of the bar. It's called Uptown Social. They have this outdoor area that's perfect for a show. 90 seats. They're filling up fast. Go to my website, jaredfreid.com. I'm also at Mohegan Sun, socially distanced, half-capacity show at Mohegan Sun. And I'm coming to Cleveland. Hilarity. So get involved, jaredfreid.com, jaredfreid.com, jaredfreid.com. Now that all the business has been taken care of, I'm very excited about today's guest, new to the podcast. So funny. You all need to get involved. Brittany Carney, thank you for coming on.
Hello. Thank you. What an honor. How are you?
An honor? That's way too much. I just called myself the Board Lord, okay? This is way less than an honor. I'm so happy to have you on, Brittany. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
How have you been? Where are you? What's going on? Tell us about your life. Let's hear a little bit. Because this is kind of what we have to do with people with the quarantine. We don't know what they're doing.
Right. So you always have to reorient yourself to someone that you haven't seen in a while. I am currently in Bushwick, Brooklyn, where I have been for the past month-ish. And then I was in Pennsylvania, suburban wilds of Pennsylvania, outside of Philly.
You were with your parents? Where? Yes. Outside of Philly, that area, it gets rural very quickly.
Yeah. You know when they say it's like Pennsylvania is like Alabama with trees. I feel like it shifts into that, I don't know, very quickly, past the city line. But I also left my parents' home 3 times over the course of 3 months, and only in the last month because they're in a cul-de-sac. So I really just was at my parents' property for months, and the only 3 times that I left were actually in the end to go to a supermarket or whatever with my mom. So it was a lot of intense reflection
What's that
time.
like? But you must have a good relationship with your parents to like,
Yeah.
like I think when people, like my parents would be like, come home, I'd be like, I'd weigh it, but it wouldn't be like, oh my God. Like some people, the idea of 3 months with their parents are like, I can't imagine. But like, I'm not that way. It doesn't sound like you are.
Right. That's interesting because I feel like I definitely hear a lot of people are like, oh, I couldn't handle more than a week. And I get that. I am very close to my parents. I think that my threshold is like, normally it's like a week to 10 days where I love them very much and I love hanging out with them. But then once that like initial time frame passed and I was like, oh, I'm going to be here for a while. I think I just kind of went through, I like completely, I feel like socially regressed. And I definitely like devolved into some kind of teenage version of myself. And then,
well, are you like in your teenage bedroom?
Yeah, exactly. It's like exactly my teenage bedroom. Like I just like watched a lot. I was working remotely, which was nice because I had some like structure, and obviously like it was cool to be in a real kitchen with like a lot of appliances and like ingredients to play around with. And my dad doesn't drink, so my mom was excited that I was around to like, we like had happy hours together. And then, so that was fun. I don't know. So I don't know if I felt like I was like 14 or like their age. Like, and I just didn't have direct encounters with anybody below 60 for like most of that time.
I know exactly what you mean. There's a moment like I go home and visit my parents, and there's moments where I'm like my mom's girlfriend, my dad's buddy. And then there's moments where I'm 13-year-old me, and you kind of like go back and forth between the two things.
I think it happens naturally. And I was thinking about this, like, I really felt like for the first time, like maybe I don't know. I don't think I'd spent that much time there since I was probably in high school or college. And my younger sister is in LA. And first of all, whenever we FaceTimed her, I could tell that when she was signing off, she's like, okay, bye, have fun. Like, glad it's not me. But
good luck with those idiots. Yeah.
Yeah. But so my point is that I felt like I was just living sometimes with like a couple. Like I was like the third roommate, like in a apartment situation. But like I'm just with this couple in a house, and they happen to be my blood kin, and I'm their spawn. But also like, I don't know, they would just have little like quarrels, and I'd be like, what the fuck is that communication pattern? Like, that's so toxic. Like, I think they get along fine, and they've been together my whole life, but like, I kind of like would have to do this thing where I would need emotional space from like them as a couple, which I didn't really think. I don't think I experienced that over Christmas.
It's interesting because that's an interesting thing, especially like when you're talking about like relationships, like so much of what we do now, like technology and just information. The more information you get, the better you get at dealing with certain things. And it's like,
right.
Like I watch my parents and their relationship style, and it does feel like it's from another time.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Where do your parents live?
They're in Florida now.
They're in Florida? Cool.
Yeah, they moved down there permanently, but they used to be, I'm from Boston. So like, like I know what you're talking about. Sometimes you watch them and you're like, man, this works, but I don't, it is different than how I would do my relationships.
Oh, absolutely. And
you have to respect it because you're like, it works.
It works, and it has worked. It's worked, I guess. But it's like, I feel sometimes, it's like very alien to me, or like my dad, who's just like a very nice, like, for his generation, progressive man. But like, I feel like he also says things I just like would not, like recently, actually I was on the phone with them, and then my mom was like, yeah, your father thinks that I should eat more ladylike. And then I was like, I said, why does anybody need to eat ladylike? And I guess my ultimate point was like, if he's just talking about general manners, that shouldn't have to do with like gender, right?
Sure.
So, like maybe, so then I like said that, and my dad, I was like, why does anybody have to eat ladylike? And my dad said, he kind of was like quiet for a moment, and then he was like, he turned into like, I don't know, just like old black dad, and he was like, if you have to ask, then you don't need to know. And then afterwards, I was like, if any guy I was seeing told me I had to do anything ladylike, I'd be like, what decade are you from?
And then gave you a riddle to figure out afterwards when you called them out on it.
A literal riddle. I was like, oh man.
But it is an interesting. I think it's super interesting, the idea of like the empathy you have for your parents. You're like, he's a progressive for his generation man.
Yeah.
You know, versus the empathy we have for like, you know, now there's people just screaming at each other online and you see like,
right.
You're like, well, there's a little bit, that person's daughter is going, well, that's my dad. You know, like it's interesting.
Oh yeah, that happens. I feel like that happens constantly, right? And then there's like different levels of that. Like, well, that's also just like an inappropriate comment from like, but yeah, so
that's the guy I work with. That's my friend. I that's what they do. It is interesting the way that kind of works out. But I understand what you're saying completely because I watch my parents and I'm like, it feels like I'm at the zoo. I'm watching two people and I'm like, look at how they, you know, eat dinner. You know, like it's like, it's wild.
Yeah, I can understand that. Exactly.
Well, Brittany, I'm super pumped to have you on the show. If everyone at home, you need to go follow Brittany right now. You're so funny. I love watching you on stage. She performs at the Comedy Cellar all the time when that, you know, is allowed to happen. And I love watching you. I think like and can you tell the audience, I think, about your background, like your education, sure. Like the things, like I feel like when I talk to you, I'm like, I'm talking to a very smart person.
You are an inspiration. I don't know. I miss trying to, I mean, I think I struggle sometimes connecting with audiences initially, or it's taken me years to figure out how to like build connection early, so I look forward to whenever I can do that again more frequently.
But where did you go to school for though? You went to
sure.
like that.
What my deal is? What's my downstairs mix up? Sure. So, I started comedy in DC where I also got I got a master's in public history and I worked in like the museum field for like 7 years and then I was like starting stand up there. So I worked at different history museums and that like shapes, I don't know. That's really formative and important to me.
That I don't mean to put you on the spot because we didn't talk about this before.
Yeah.
Because when I watch you do stand up, it's like, I'm like, wow, I don't want to like this. I hope this sounds like a positive. I'm learning and it's funny at the same time. Like they're because you're giving information in an edible way, and I watch like you have the joke about Ben Franklin and I'm like I'm remembering your Ben Franklin joke and I'm remembering the things about it, and then the joke about you're talking about dating and relationships and in the mix with like people at Maryland,
yeah. Because like
I'm remembering
in the
your joke.
Physics department.
Cool.
Yeah, I love writing and performing material where I can like bring history or some sort of like scientific discussion into like my own dating experience or like dumb life experience. I think that's really important to me creatively.
I love it so much, and it is so specific to you whenever I watch you. Because I think like the hardest part about doing that is where, and this does happen for some people where it sounds like they're talking down to an audience, and there is none of that at all with you. It is,
thank God.
I know, because a lot of times I'm hosting, so I'm watching the whole show, and it's
the
like
whole show, right?
But it's interesting because there are comics that are going on stage and they're like, let me tell you how the world works. And it feels, you're like, I would be sitting in an audience. I'd be like, what the fuck? Why is this person yelling at me? And I love the way that you relate like history to your life and like sex and dating. And I'm like, this is so cool. I'm a big fan. So I want to make
so much.
Of course.
I think it took me a minute to figure all of that out. And then like, I usually my last point about this. What?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I feel like often when I'm on stage, in many environments, also at the Cellar, it's like, what is wrong with this like weird little girl? So I think part of like, so anyway, I'm like always trying to figure out how to like better establish myself like early on in my set. And so I think like, it's like, I want to talk about this like really nerdy shit, but like I have to also like just bear with me. That's my point. So
I mean, I understand you from a very different point of view, a very different, much dumber point of view. Like I have a thing where I think like stand up is hard, and the hardest part is getting people. And what you're saying is exactly right. You know, come to my world is basically what you're saying to a group of strangers. And I remember when I first started doing stand up, people like I would go to these open mics and I didn't know what I looked like to people.
Exactly.
You know, like I didn't know what their first thought was. So like a lot of times it was like, get over that I look like someone you might hate. Get over that you look like that, you know. And I was like, I want to talk about dating and relationships. And they're like, yeah, but you look like the guy that didn't text me back sometimes. I would get that vibe from people. And I'm did
you start in Boston?
I started in New York, so I would go to like Queens Creek in the Cave. I would go to like all like the small bar shows, the small open mics, and I remember like, and I understand what you're saying from just from a different, like I'm not trying to get people to like get on board with Ben Franklin my relationship to it, but I'm saying like I never realized that was a part of it. It's like, hey, bear with me being someone that you don't know or someone different than you're used to hanging out with.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting and like really like I think that's a big part of also one of my first realizations about stand-up early on, like I started in DC and just like doing different mics there. I feel like something that resonated like 6 months in, I was like, oh, this stuff forces you to reconcile with like how you come off to people. And it came often from like literally expressions of people in the front row or like getting on stage and then somebody being like, so is that an act or like what is your problem? Like, I don't know. So then I was like, oh, people think I'm like, yeah, you just have to kind of face that head on. And I feel like stand up really hyper emphasizes that, like,
totally.
Like a mirror. Yeah.
It's a total mirror. And I always say it like, you know, stand-ups are, you know, there's obviously the other types, but a lot of stand-ups are very humble. Like we understand the idea of like, we all understand bombing and then going back and going, oh, I fucked up there. I fucked up there. We're hard on ourselves. Like I think the internet, like I've written a lot of stuff on the internet, and what I've noticed about people who only write on the internet or purely do internet stuff, they're a lot less humble with that stuff. They don't realize, to them, anyone negative is a troll and anyone that agrees with me is right. So you're like we live in a world where like no one is out to get us. They're at a show to laugh. You know, and it's like, I fucked that up for you. Yeah.
I think stand up really forces you to like deal with rejection of your, it's like, and so it's so but then also take it in total stride because you're like, okay, this is just part of the like process here.
Sure.
And it feels like explicitly personal because it's like you and your ideas, but then I know, but then that's just kind of part of it. So I think that your point about like that versus like internet comedy figures or like writing, it's different. And I don't know. That's why
it's hard. Listen, I love watching you, Brittany. I want everyone to go follow you at Brittany_Carnage. It's on all my social media. Go right now at Brittany_Carnage on Instagram. And also you were going to do shows with me in DC when I'm there. So hopefully that happens. And, you know, we have a rescheduled date and hopefully things go back to normal. And when that happens, hopefully
that would be wonderful.
You'll be able to do those shows with me again. But other than that, let's do some emails. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
jtrainpodcast@gmail.com, jtrainpodcast@gmail.com. Fucked and chucked. Jared, thanks for all you do. Long-time listener, first-time writer. I matched with a guy on Bumble beginning of July. We hit it off and FaceTimed since he had COVID and we couldn't hang out until he wasn't contagious. Within that time, we got to know each other pretty well. He told me he deleted all his dating apps and really wanted to see where things went with us and seemed infatuated with me. Not to brag, but looks-wise, I was a little out of league. So she's saying I'm better looking than him. During our FaceTime calls, I started to see red flags and foundational differences between us. He ended up going out of town while he had COVID and went MIA for a couple of days, which I found to be really strange. Yeah, that's strange. When he texted me when he texted me when he returned asking if I was still interested, I replied, "I don't think we're the match." He seemed jaded and petty by this response. As a week went by, I was still thinking about him and started to think I made a rash decision without ever even meeting the guy in person. So I texted him apologizing for being rash and asked if he would be interested to hang out. Fast forward another week, I went over to his place one night and all seemed well. We had wine and were chatting until we started making out, and then he asked if I felt comfortable and wanted to have sex. I felt like we were vibing and wanted to in the moment. After we finished, he said he can't sleep next to someone he doesn't know well. Oh my God.
Oh Lord. Okay.
I can go inside your I can be inside your body, but I can't be next to you.
Oh my
during
God.
this whole sleep thing, even though he was just inside of me and didn't know me well, SMH. The next morning, I get the text messages from him. Did he just want to hang out to fuck me and get payback for me originally dissing him? He made his text sound like a low blow when he was not acting or implying any of this while we were together. Any advice is appreciated. Sincerely, fucked and chucked. So, do we want to read the text first, or do you have any thoughts or comments on what happened?
Okay. Yeah, I'm like processing this. So, yeah, what's your thought?
I think let's read the text. So long story short, they meet. They have this this meeting that's very virtual. Then she kind of realizes they're not the match, and then she writes that he seemed jaded and petty by this response. And as week went by, I felt bad about it, made a rash decision. She comes back to him, and now they they hang out in person. They have sex. He's like, don't sleep here. Get the fuck out, basically. And then the next morning, she gets this text message from him. And I'll be him. Hey, I'm going to be straight up so you don't feel shafted. I had a good time with you and everything, but I didn't catch a vibe, anything serious. I hope this doesn't make you not want to kick it with me anymore, because I think you're really cool and I genuinely would love to be your friend. I just figured you'd appreciate no bullshit. She wrote back, I would have appreciated you saying that prior to sleeping together. He writes, sleeping together is a big deal to me, so that's part of it for me. But I understand that, and I apologize for not recognizing it. And then she writes, I get it. Thanks for being honest. And then he writes, I was serious about wanting to be your friend, too. But I also understand if that's not something you're interested in, given the circumstances. Ugh, this guy, I don't like anything that happened here.
So something that's registering for me is like,
yeah.
Was he just not that into it when they had, is that like legitimate? You know how sometimes like maybe they had sex and it was like, okay, but then you're still interested in like exploring this person sexually and also like romantically. But I don't understand the quick turnaround so well from like,
so
yeah.
I think what he did is actually way more diabolical than maybe it seems on the page. Because in my mind, the turn he made, which you're exactly right, like the turn he made is so quick and so like black and white. So to me, like, you know, we all evolve, you know, as people. Yeah. And I think there's this evolution that this email seems to indicate, because there's the idea that like, you know, the thing you see a lot is we talked for a while, we went on this great date, we had sex, and then he got a little weirder, and then he disappeared. And now I've been texting with every once in a while he comes out of the blue and texts me. And that's like a more normal thing to me because I understand that. The guy didn't want to be a dick. He likes you, but not enough to like make time for you. Like that's an email we've seen here before.
That happens all the time, right?
I get that. I'm not apologizing for that, but like that I get and I see.
Yeah.
It's and then the response to that is a lot of women or people, whoever it is, will say, hey, just be fucking honest with me.
Right.
You
right.
know? And this situation feels like he knows that, and he's like, so I'll have my sex, then I'll be honest about what I want, and then I won't be the dick, and I'll say, oh yeah, God. Right? Doesn't it seem like that?
Yeah, right. It's like he's like, well, I'm being honest, so that's noble. I'm trying to think, and something when you're like relaying the email, something occurred to me, even in terms of like him not wanting her to crash there, because I guess there's like, I was like, okay, I'm a bit, that's like pretty horrifying, I think, because it's like, well, you're inside of me, like, isn't a part of that being okay with me just like lying next to you for a few hours before I take an Uber at 7 a.m. But also the point is like, I was like, oh, is that better than if somebody were like, people, there's like a number of lines people make like, oh, I have to, like, when do you have work in the morning? Or like,
sure. Yeah.
Or like, yeah, I got to get up early,
There's nicer, mean ways to do it.
And even if that hurts your feelings, it's more like in the within inside of the box in terms of like acceptable things.
At least there was like care put in for your feelings. Like it's kind of like when you meet someone from another country and then they pick up English and they have no kid gloves to how they report things to you.
Yeah, exactly.
This feels like that, where he's like, I don't sleep next to anybody. And you're like, whoa. You could have just like tried to live in the lie of like, hey, what time's your work? Like you could have been a little bit like, it kind of seems like this is how he operates in a world where he's like, but I'm being honest. And it's like, well, you chose when you got to be honest.
Yes, that feels manipulative.
Very manipulative, especially, and he did it. You're right. He did it with the bedtime thing. If he had said, this is the thing. If he had said it during their date, hey, like, it's really great to meet you. Just so you know, before we, like, I would love to, and she said he invited her to his bedroom. If he was like, hey, before we go to my bedroom, this is going to be a friend thing for me. That is nothing against you. This is a friend thing to me. I would happy to have friends with benefits with you and have sex with you right now because I think you're beautiful, smart, fun. But this is always going to be a friend thing to me. And you're not sleeping here. Like, I just can't sleep in bed next to someone I don't know. If he had done it then you're like, okay, he's got a leg to stand on.
Yeah, exactly. And like, that's more debatably like, okay, cool. Thanks for communicating. Like, I feel like that would be my reaction. Honestly, I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I would have time to like make that choice for myself, I guess.
Sure.
Or, like,
yeah.
So this
guy's kind of like backtracked his, and you use the word noble. Like he's like backtracked his nobility. Like he's like, no. Like he's basically like being honest, like 10 minutes too late in every situation.
Right. And I'm also weirded out by those red flags that you described, like him leaving or like traveling when he had COVID. I'm like, what? So I know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. It's just like that in a different way is like kind of, for me, it like speaks to his like capacity to like throw other people's experiences aside or like reality aside for like whatever he has to do or like wants to do.
There's a character profile he has absolutely written where he doesn't care about anyone about himself. When it came to the virus, well, I'll go out and whoever I give it to, they can go fuck themselves. When he has you over, well, I'll fuck, and then when I want to sleep alone, they can go fuck themselves. Well, and I think the biggest thing from this email, the sex, all that stuff, that's big things, just like. But I'm saying, like, to go back to the beginning, I want to read a line she wrote.
Okay.
And I think this is so important, especially in the age of meeting people online. She said, as the weeks went by, I was still thinking about him and started to think I made a rash decision without ever meeting the guy in person. I don't think you did. I think you saw something where you go, Listen, I think there's no such thing as a rash decision on a person when you haven't met them in person.
I think that's absolutely true.
Right? I think
true.
she's giving him the credit of someone she's known years. And it's like, listen, if it's a best friend since childhood, yeah, you shouldn't just ditch on them. You should give them a chance to redeem themselves. When it's someone you met on the internet and they haven't even made the time to make an in-person meeting with you, to go out and get drinks or to go meet them, for a date or get to know you in a way that was took up part of their day, then you don't owe them the decision-making process, right?
Yeah. I don't exactly like if you perceive that you don't have the right chemistry or that he's kind of off or something online, and then you're like, no, thank you. I don't think that's the equivalent of like going on 2 dates where you like spend a lot of time together and like maybe hook up. It's like, yeah. And so I'm curious. I'm kind of curious. Whatever motivated her to like think of, how she was like, and then I was thinking about him and like worried I made a mistake. Like, I'm curious, like whether, like what that feeling came out of. And sometimes, if you like, it's like, what's that? If you like push somebody away and then it's like easy to then kind of regret it if they're not around because you're like, oh, what about that attention? So maybe I understand that and that's kind of relatable, but maybe that's what that was.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's like, there's a drip of drugs that you're getting from a textual relationship every time.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, the drug is gone. And now you're in quarantine. There's no one else to reach out to. You have this match who was good in some ways. Wow, maybe I should. I don't think she's stupid for going back, but I think it's like,
no.
I think it's a learning experience to go, hey, if you made a rash decision about someone that you've never even met, there was a reason to do that.
Yeah. I also think like little red flags are like, the more I realize, through the past decade, I'm like, oh, red flags, I think they're called them for a reason.
I totally agree.
And maybe it's hard to really read into them if you're like looking for a connection or you're like really attracted to somebody, but I don't even know if it sounds,
Anyway. No, I'm with you. I think sometimes the red flag thing, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but the red flag thing that you're saying, like, I think this also has to do with languaging. Like, oh, like we're like, oh, he left the door or he does it. He sprays water on the mirror while he brushes his teeth. That's a red. And it's like, no. The red flag of like just disregarding the health of your fellow person, and you saw it enough to be like, hey, I think also like when you take a moment to send someone a text, sending them away, you have to trust that instinct. You have to trust how hard that was for you to go, hey, we're not the match. That is the hard, like her texting that is like legitimately hard.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I give her credit. We are sponsored, people. Rothy's. The J Train podcast is brought to you by Rothy's. As summer turns to fall, Rothy's is here to make your day with comfortable, washable, and sustainable products. You've heard about them. They make stylish and sustainable shoes and bags. They're carefully crafted with eco-friendly materials like repurposed plastic water bottles and marine plastic. It's no surprise that Rothy's best-selling shoe, the Point in Black, has over 3,000 near-perfect reviews. I got Rothy's shoes for my mom. What I love about them is that they're wearable. You can wear them anywhere and you look right. It's not your slips, it's not your fancy shoes. These are the in-between shoes that get you through life, the ones you kick on and you just have to not think about. And I think that's a great thing that we all need. We all need those shoes to get us somewhere great without thinking about, are they comfortable? Do they look right? Am I going to look like the crazy one wearing, plastic bags on my feet? No. These are good-looking, great shoes that are very comfortable from everything I've heard from my mom. I would also say just go look at the website. Go take a dance around. You're going to find something that's good for you. And fall coming up is the refresh period. You're leaving the house more. It's time to get a little, get a little pep in your step with some new shoes. Rothy's comes in an ever-changing array of colors, prints, and patterns. Rothy's are available in a range of styles. Rothy's shoes are seamlessly knit with thread made from plastic water bottles, so they're ultra comfortable as soon as you slip them on. That's right, there's zero break-in period. Vogue calls Rothy's a personal obsession, and Health says they're the most comfortable shoes on earth. Plus, Rothy's always comes with free shipping and free returns. Rothy's has kept over 50 million single-use plastic water bottles out of landfills and transform them into signature thread, which is then knit into beautiful, sustainable products. That's great. So you can feel good about the thing that's on your feet. Another major bonus, Rothy's are fully machine washable. Every time they need a refresh, you can simply toss them in the washing machine. That's huge. That's huge. That means you're going to have great-looking shoes for longer. So this is saving you some dough. Check out all the amazing shoes and bags right now at rothys.com/JTrain. Go to rothys.com. That's rothys.com/JTrain. Style and sustainability. These are the shoes you've been waiting for. Head to rothys.com/JTrain today and slip into something you'll feel good about. The J-Train podcast is brought to you by Hello Tushy. It's hard to believe that when we go to the bathroom in this country, most of us wipe instead of wash. Imagine jumping in the shower and not turning on the water, just wiping your body with dry paper. Can you imagine? Because people would call you crazy. So why wipe with dry toilet paper instead of washing with water? For years, bidets have been available, but hideously expensive, costing thousands of dollars. But now there's Hello Tushy. I have the Hello Tushy. I will tell you right now, this is a game changer. It has changed my life. Yes, I just said a product has changed my life. I'm using less toilet paper. I'm spending less money on toilet paper. I'm feeling better. I'm walking out of the bathroom refreshed. I don't have that period of time. You know when you get done with the bathroom and you have like that walk-off period? No walk-off period with a Hello Tushy. You're sprinting into the day. The Hello Tushy modern bidet attachment is here to democratize the blessings bestowed by bidets and offer clean buttholes to everybody. Hello Tushy cleans your butt with a precise stream of fresh water for just $79. People, you got to get involved. I legitimately changed my life. It attaches to your existing toilet, requires no electricity or additional plumbing, and cuts toilet paper use by 80%. So the Hello Tushy bidet pays for itself in a few months. I know that's like a very salesy way to tell you to buy this, but you're not going to spend money on toilet paper that you're literally throwing into the toilet. This is It is unbelievable how much paper you go through because you don't bidet. Because with Hello Tushy, you don't wipe at all. Even the best two-ply just can't cut it when it comes to hands-free poop experience. I give it a wash, and then I dab it clean with one square. You're in single square land, I'll say that. And every Hello Tushy bidet attachment comes with a 60-day risk-free guarantee and a 12-month warranty. Join millions of happy Hello Tushy customers right now and have a clean butt with every flush. Go to hellotushy.com/JTrain. That's hellotushy.com/JTrain to get 10% off. This is a special offer for our listeners. Go to hellotushy.com/JTrain for 10% off. That's hellotushy.com/JTrain. JTrain Podcast at gmail.com, JTrain Podcast at gmail.com. Here with Brittany Carney at Brittany_Carnage. Go follow. Go get involved. She's so funny. Love watching her on stage. Love everything she does. Get involved. When to tell her you've matched with her friend.
This is the next.
This is a new email. Papa JT just matched on Hinge with this girl who seems super cool, and we've had some good banter. I realized through her pictures that I recently matched with one of her friends. Nothing ever happened with the friend, but we were texting and had planned to go on a date, but it never panned out. Wondering when/if I acknowledge this. Any advice is totes preach. So, Brittany, are you single?
I'm like in some involvements, but something like this, this irrelevant thing happened to me recently.
Please tell us.
Where a guy that like really, really hurt my feelings like years ago, like maybe about 5 years ago, and I knew him for a while previously, and we like dated, and then kind of like wasn't emotionally available, and then like it was the kind of breakup where he, I think, was trying to like pull away enough so that I had to initiate the breakup. And I was really sad.
Yeah, making someone break up with you. Yeah.
Right. And then I was really sad. And then about 2 weeks later, he started dating another woman that's like at his workplace. So
got it.
That was like, so that's like a backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like really rough the way for me that it like ended, like very little kind of like adult communication. And then he was like later back in my life, but like ultimately is like a fraught figure. Mm-hmm. And I'll get to, and so recently he reached out to me and was like, hey, and like we've hooked up, actually that's a whole other story, but anyway, but now most recently, as of 2 years ago, so he recently messaged me and was like, hey, I just want to check in about this, like I matched with your friend on Hinge and I don't think she knows, so I just want to like, he was like asking me if basically I was giving him
permission,
like a permission or a blessing. And I just kind of took a second to like look at it. And the truth is that like, he really didn't handle our breakup very well. And I know for a fact that he has a pattern of like not handling it well.
It is also very interesting that he came to you. It kind of like gives you, to me, that's his admission of like, I was never really right to you, because he knows that if he ends up dating this other woman that you're going to see, and it's going to bring up more bad feelings from your side. That's how I think he's thinking. Exactly.
So I was like, I like registered. I was like, okay, Brittany, what is your reaction to this? And then I was like, I like explained this to my friend in question. And what's really weird is that the only reason this guy knew this person was my friend was through my Instagram, because like I have like pictures of her and stuff. So then I said to him, okay, well, first I like relayed this to my friend and I was like, hey, this guy like really broke my heart. And then she was like, oh, out of the question. And this is funny too. She was like, I don't even remember matching. And I think it's a kind of gendered, like, I don't know, women get a lot of matches.
Sure.
So, but this guy is very attractive. The other thought was like, I'm sure he has no trouble getting attention from women on this. Like, what is this? What is this? So I said to him, like, I was just like, oh, I don't think I'm comfortable with that. And then he was like, okay, yeah. He was like, oh, I understand. That makes sense. And I was like, yeah, she was like a close friend. And then, I don't know. I feel like I actually I feel like then I was debating telling him that I thought it was inappropriate. Not that like, it'd be one thing if he really developed feelings for her or an attraction to her like separately, but it was all, because it was all virtual, I just found it kind of weird that like, he didn't assume it was not going to be okay for me. So I'm sorry. That was like a long story, but this just happened to me.
No, but like, I think the story is very important because I think your situation is actually different from this situation in the fact that there's an element of like him looking for your blessing because it helps him with this other woman. Like,
who he doesn't know. Yeah.
Who he doesn't know. So it's like, there's a little bit in my mind where he's like, oh, maybe if Brittany's cool with this, now this woman will be more likely to like kind of fall for me or think that I'm great because Brittany thought I was great. There's an element like that kind of like, I'm trying to think of like why he would need to like, because the way to go about this in the like the difference between your situation and this situation, this guy isn't really, it doesn't seem very diabolical. It doesn't feel very planned out. This guy's like, no, this is normal. On Hinge, there's plenty of people that never go on a first date that matched, it didn't pan out. What this guy describes of the date that doesn't happens every day on a dating app match. And now for him, I would say to him, he's got to go. What he does is say, hey, I just want to be up front. I have matched with your. I did a little bit of internet stalking. and I noticed one of your friends and I had matched in the past. And just say it just like you said to us. We planned a date and it never panned out, but I'm really interested in us going on a date, and I just want to make sure you know that before we go out and you're comfortable with that. That's the normal way to go. The abnormal way to go is to pull in you in this kind of in your story is to pull you in and almost look for you to like get because it's important also that you're like, my friend didn't even remember him. So it's like it's almost as if he could think that you give him this nudge almost.
Right.
That's what
yeah. And I don't know if then he was like looking for whether I would. It's like, I don't fully trust him to not. Okay. It's like, if I had responded in a certain way, and I said this literal sentence, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, but like, that was like the tone of it. If I had been like, maybe if I had sounded more hurt, then it would also have been a signal to him to be like, oh, I can like, okay, time to like see if she wants to sext again, like Brittany, or like.
How long have you and this? How long have you and this guy been kind of going back and forth with this?
Oh, I mean, okay, so what? Our relationship ended in like 2015, and then probably about a year later, two years later, we like became sexual, but with no relationship pretense. And it's not necessarily good for me, but it is something that happened and was like honestly fine because I had moved on to other things, and it was like fine, and I guess kind of hot, but like, I mean, very hot, but like not, I wasn't as worried about it, but he had really hurt me previously, and that was like, it could have been more destructive for me than it actually turned out to be. But I still think that I have like I'm like still processing. I don't know. So then we hooked up about 2 years ago, which is a long time ago, but we'll still like chat and stuff sometimes. So I just thought it was kind of like, I don't know, there's like any other woman here. And what it's a little bit of him also, disregard the email, your situation. To me, that sounds like him trying to, if you're still texting here and there and it's not sexual, it's a little bit of like, how do we is the water under the bridge yet? Like, it feels like he's trying to like move along your relationship with him by using this other like kind of talk of like, my opinions change now. Like I think like him reaching out to you is a way of going, so this is where we stand now because I'm talking sexually about someone you know. And it's a little like it seems immature to me. I think it is, and I actually think that's what it is, or somewhere in between. Like, but I know how he operates, and I'm not surprised that is what he's doing. And so then, of course, I just kind of was like, okay, I don't know how comfortable I am with that whole exchange. So I like pulled away a little bit. And then he's like in the like sending me, memes stage of courtship.
Listen,
and
this is on the other podcast I have, and this is kind of we had an episode talking about like the 10-year guy, and it seems like this exists for a lot of women, where it's this long. And listen, I know that I've been I've been this guy. Like I if especially in the seat that I sit in now, reading these emails, talking with you, talking with Jordana, my co-host for You Up, like you're like, this all fucking sucks. Like, and like the technology part of it fits in so well because it's just it's almost too easy to send that meme to someone where him sending it to you, he might not even, and I'm giving him credit, I'm giving him maybe more benefit of the doubt than he maybe deserves, but he may not even realize how destructive just sending the cat meme is.
Literally that exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, for you, like if I was to give you advice, I'd be like, like maybe you got to tell him that.
Yeah, I was going to actually. And then I was like, and then I had this other thought, which is like, I've also moved on and I have like other things in my life that are like more present and rewarding, obviously. And then I was like, So then I was like, well, Brittany, like, is it even worth like that conversation? Like, maybe you're okay. But that's actually, I don't know if that's right or not, really. That's just
I tend to like, I've heard that a bunch where it's like, no, not to say, but I've heard that perspective a bunch where it's like, I don't want to sound like I'm still in that.
Oh yeah.
Like, and that's like, the fear is like, oh, he'll think that I'm still, writing his name in my binder.
Yeah.
And
like going through his Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not it. That's, to me, I'm like, if you talk to him and you were like, it's more self-preservation of like, nobody needs 15 minutes of bad in their day. Like if there's someone that you can text or call and be like, hey, the meme that you send me brings me to a place that like annoys me. And I don't need that in my life. That might be fruitful. I don't know.
I think so. Honestly. To the point that like, yeah, I didn't mean to go on this whole tangent. And I think
this is a tangent that fits into the podcast completely. Like this is something you're not telling, the story that we're talking about, like the email we've given the advice. I'm talking your situation is something that like a lot of people get into where they're dealing with someone for a long period of time. It plays a part in their, I call it head trash. I got that from like when I used to, do you ever hear head trash? Like,
no,
I got
that's good. I never heard that.
I sold life insurance before I started doing stand-up comedy, and they would always say like you only have to do 3 things here, and then the rest is head trash.
Okay.
The things that get in your way to be able to do the things you need to do. So you have to wade through the head trash, and I think it's applicable for dating stuff because you're like, people are like, well, why can't I play the field? I can have options, and it's like, okay, but also admit to that head trash exists with this stuff. Like
it does.
There's
a lot of head trash, and it's hard to extinguish it. But so it's funny because I feel like that's not even. I'm fortunately in a place where this particular person is no longer at the forefront of my mind. Like,
sure,
that is a very healthy thing for me. But I'm like, but then of course, it affected the whole little exchange did really like bring me back to a time where he did matter more. And it was like not that healthy for me. So
I that's like the most understandable thing in the world. All it takes, and that's the thing, the phone is a great tool, but it's also the thing that one text can come into your phone and just crush the day.
Completely.
Totally. And it's like, that's why I say like, letting someone know that they do that to you is like,
you're right.
It kind of like defangs them where you're like, hey, just know, like, I don't think he's sitting there going, I got to send this meme to Brittany so I can kill her day and ruin it. Like, I don't think that's in his mind at all. But if you let someone know that, then they go, okay, I'm not going to like keep shooting these grenades,
Right. And I think it's like way past the point, because there is definitely a point with this person where it was like, I felt really rejected and like really hurt. And then I was like, because he had kind of quickly jumped into this like other relationship that I learned after like fizzled through the same time frame that mine was roughly. And so it was like, we had a mutual friend. So like, so anyway, there was definitely a long time where all I wanted was some kind of like, this is sad, but I like wanted approval from this guy that he had missed out, or that he was still that I was like attractive to him, even though I don't need him to feel that. But like
I don't think you're alone in that. Like I think people are gonna hear this and go like, because I've been there. I think we've all been there, and I think like people listening have been in the exact situation where you're like you're chasing. Ghost is maybe not the right word, but you're chasing like this approval that like it doesn't. When you get it, even if you got it, you wouldn't want it.
Exactly, and I think that I'm now, because also, I mean, then we like later kind of got involved again, and it was like fine, it was like good, but like I was impressed with myself in that I no longer put so much emotional weight on it, I guess, and so now I'm like, okay, Brittany, you got whatever that was, so you don't have to like, you can just tell him. So yeah, I agree with you. Maybe I should put that on my agenda.
I think, listen, I always say it on this podcast. This advice is easier to give and way harder to take. Like we get so many emails a week, and every time I say something, I go, man, good luck with that one. You know, like we get done with an email, I'll be like,
Oh, God.
hopefully that works out. You know what I mean? And it's like, because like I know, even in my own life, you know, like, listen, I know the answer is diet and exercise. I know that's the answer. But every day I'm like, well, maybe if I push off breakfast till 12, I won't eat it. You know, it's all rational. That's how we work. But
totally.
The J Train podcast is brought to you by Ritual. Ritual. We all want to do the right thing to keep our bodies healthy in the long run, but even if we try really hard to eat kale salads, drink green smoothies, we're still most likely not getting all of the essential nutrients we need on a daily basis. Enter Ritual, the obsessively researched vitamin for women. They've tested their formulas so that it is easily absorbed by the body. Science-backed isn't just a buzzword at Ritual. It's the standard. Jess is taking Ritual. I got it for her. I will say this about any daily multivitamin. It is a great way to start your day. It gets you on track. I think it is something that clicks your mind into the space of, I'm going to be a good person today. I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday. I'm a multivitamin taker. And Ritual, is for women. And I think if you're out there and you're looking for a way to change your mindset each morning, I think this is a great way to do it, because just the act of taking it, you're clicking into, I'm going to be better today than I was yesterday. You can't eat a pound of kale per day. Ritual's Essentials fills in the gaps in your diet so you get everything from D to omega-3 all in their clean, absorbable forms. That's the thing. You want to make sure you're getting everything you need every day. And some days you're better than others. No shady additives or ingredients. If you hate taking pills, this is for you. No more choking down pills. Ritual is just 2 easy-to-take capsules full of 9 nutrients. Their no nausea capsule design is gentle on an empty stomach, and there's a mint tab in every bottle to keep things fresh, so you don't get that fishy aftertaste common with most omega-3s. From D3 to omega-3, Ritual's Essential for Women helps fill gaps in a woman's diet. A subscription is easy to start, only $1 a day, no strings attached. Better health doesn't happen overnight, and right now Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off during your first 3 months. Fill in the gaps in your diet with Essential for Women, a small step that helps support a healthy foundation for your body. Visit ritual.com/JTrain. That's ritual.com/JTrain to start your Ritual today. That's 10% off during your first 3 months at ritual.com/JTrain. Let's do one more email. You ready?
Yes.
JTrainPodcast@gmail.com, JTrainPodcast@gmail.com. Here with Brittany Carney. At Brittany_Carnage. Go follow immediately. It's all over my social media. Am I crazy to not miss my ex-husband?
Huh.
Jared, love the podcast. I'm going to jump right into it. Here's a little bit of background. At the beginning of the year, I found out my husband of 3 years, together for 6, was cheating on me with one of his female friends. Ooh, this totally came out of nowhere. I had never suspected him of cheating or being unfaithful in any way. In fact, he was the one who confessed to me that he was cheating. I didn't find out through snooping or other means because I never felt the need to snoop. Upon finding this out, I left town for a few days to clear my mind and visit family to get some support. We talked on the phone during this time, and we both agreed that we wanted to work things out and that we were still in love with each other. When I came back home, I told him that I could only forgive him if he came clean and told me absolutely everything. He then confessed that he had been cheating on me with multiple women and men throughout our entire relationship and marriage. I decided that I deserved better and moved out of state and filed for divorce the very next morning. Although I was sad in the beginning, I now feel great and do not feel like I miss him at all. I started dating again pretty quickly and matched with a great guy on Tinder. Things have been amazing between us for the last 5 months or so, to the point where we have talked about moving in with each other.
Wow.
The only problem is that all my family and friends act like I am crazy for moving on from my ex-husband so quickly. Although they are supportive and say they trust my decisions, they act like I am sort of delusional. Are they right? Am I crazy for not missing my ex-husband and being ready to take the next step with someone else? I'm usually a very confident and practical person, but I now find it a little bit more difficult to trust my gut feelings since I ended up being so wrong about my ex and was completely blindsided by his infidelity. Should I trust my instinct and take the next step with my new boyfriend, or should I be more wary? Sorry for the long email, but you always give the best advice. Thanks. This email is amazing. I want to thank them for writing in. What an unbelievable fucking experience they're going through.
Wow.
So Brittany, what do you think?
Okay, so I'm curious. So how long was the original marriage?
So they were together for 6 years, but they were married for 3. And then he told her that he was being unfaithful. It sounded like he had a breaking point where he was like, listen, I've been sleeping with my friend.
Yeah.
And then she went away and she came back. She was like, tell me everything. And then he kind of clean slated it. He was like, here's the whole thing. And then she was like, wow, that's more than I ever would have thought. And she was like, divorce.
It sounds like, do you think this happens? Do you think that the infidelity fed into her losing attraction? Because sometimes you hear like it's really hard. It's like the opposite effect. You like get really angry and hurt, but you are more attracted to this person that's like now declare themselves to be unavailable in a certain way. But like maybe she just felt less attracted to him, like emotionally, romantically. If she's,
I think you're right with the idea of this being like a Band-Aid rip where he's like, and I've slept with her, him, her.
Yeah.
And she's like, whoa, like you're not even like, I think when you get that like amount of information in one day from the person, when she's like, I wasn't even snooping. Like, I think like snooping is a little bit of a show of lack of confidence. Like, I think like,
yes,
it sounds like she's a confident woman who is like,
yeah,
like, and confidence and honesty, the confident and honest one gets fucked over a lot of the times. Like the person, like if you're not,
true.
Yeah, it happens. And that's not to say she's stupid. That could happen to any of us. Anyone can lie to you. So I don't think she's crazy, because I think when someone is lying to you that much, and saying to you but you're in this world where like life is good and you thought this was like a good marriage, maybe you guys weren't even connecting on a actual level at all.
That's what I'm thinking.
Like this
maybe they were like this.
Yeah.
And then that whole thing was like the catharsis. So, or like, shed light on everything. You know
what I would compare it to? You ever watch those videos of the babies that get the ear implant?
Yeah. And then they're like, oh yeah.
Oh, and you see their faces and they're like, I can hear. Like, to me, like this marriage was thinking you're hearing when you can't hear. Like the marriage is like, no, this is great. I have my hearing. And then one day someone comes in and goes, no, put this in your ear. And now that's the new boyfriend. That's the Tinder. That's the new guy. And she's going, wow, whoa, this is what hearing feels like? Like, I think when someone lies to you that much, you're going along with it. And because I think this all also boils down to like, you don't have to be delusional to be lied to. You can say, yeah, go. If a guy is a fucking sociopath and can sleep with multiple people while married to you, then yeah, you can be fooled. So the idea that like this guy pulled a fast one, came clean because he was like, fuck this, I want to live a real normal life. I don't want to do. It says even more that he came clean because it was probably exhausting for him.
Yeah, right.
To keep up a lie so well.
Yeah, and like probably draining in a way that he was like, I'm not even happy. What am I doing? And so he had his own thing, like his own like revelation.
Totally.
And I think, okay, so to play devil's advocate for like one moment, even though I don't necessarily think this is like true, it's just like, There's a universe in which she's actually just experiencing the the elation of like a rebound. Like she's
Totally.
like, whoa, this new person is everything that my ex-husband is not, and like, oh, it's going so well. And like sometimes that's like a little bit worrying, but also they've been together like 5 months, right?
Yeah.
5 months. So it actually just sounds like it's like, I don't know, a healthier connection.
And I would also say for her family and friends, and this is the truth with all social media, they got a view into your life that is the non-cheated on view. Like in the way, in the way that she was led to believe that this was a faithful marriage, it's hard to do that with you. It's a lot easier to do that with people over social media and people looking into your life. Everyone thinks the neighbors are doing okay. Everyone thinks the marriage over there is doing well because you put out a good picture for whatever holiday. So if you were fooled, they were definitely fooled. So they're going, wow, they divorced so quickly. And it's like, yeah, he cheated on me 1,000 times with everyone in the fucking block, and it's like I had to go. And they're not experiencing the next phase, which is like tasting ice cream now that you have taste buds. Like I think you're getting, and listen, I agree with like the pump on the brakes thing. Like the devil's advocate in this scenario makes sense. Like, hey, it's your first relationship out of a thing that was devastating.
Yeah.
Make sure you're with the right person. Make sure
like
you bring them around. Yeah, check in with yourself. Make sure you bring them around. Be a little less trusting. I know that's hard for a partner, but like maybe a little, let's take some stock of how we work through relationships that can get us better for the next one. But I do believe that if someone was cheating on you that much, the next thing can just taste like the real thing. It is like having the fruit that's actually ripe, right. That's where I'm like, you're not crazy. So it's a little bit of them, but you're doing okay, I would say.
Right. I agree with that.
JTrainPodcast@gmail.com. JTrainPodcast@gmail.com. Brittany Carney, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
This was so fantastic. We got into your stuff a little bit. I'm happy we did that.
Yeah.
That was exciting. I want everyone to go follow Brittany. She's so funny. I love watching you on stage. I can't say that enough. @Brittany_Carnage. Go follow on Instagram. I'll be pushing out her information. I'm Jared Freid. We're here Mondays and Thursdays. Keep sending your emails. Keep telling your friends. We will be back next episode. Boom.